Welcome to X1T Gaming, and together we're going to revolutionizing the gaming industry. So we're now on Learn Unity on lesson 2.1, and we're going to do the prototype 2. We're going to try to figure it out. I'm just opening up the Unity projects right now. It's just taking a little bit while to load because my computer is so slow. So bear with me. So I think the first lesson that we got to do, create a new project for prototype 2, open hub, Unity hub, and create an empty prototype 2 project in your course. Directly correct Unity version. So I downloaded prototype 2, I extracted it, and now I just need to open it. That's going to be number 1. So we'll do that once I get it open, and then we'll start off with add the player, animals, and food. You know what? I might not even need to see the video for this one. Okay, so we go to assets, import package, custom package, and we want open prototype 2 starter files. Open. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. Okay, so this is the stuff that I'm importing. Prototype files level 2. And then we're going to go work. I don't think I need to watch the video for the next one. I might not need to watch some of the videos. Because, yeah, it seems pretty simple. Okay, we get all the stuff in here. Okay, prototype 2. We don't need this one. We'll just delete this one. Yeah, boom. Okay. So we got assets, scenes, course library. Okay, so if you want to drag a different material from course library materials into the ground object, drag one human. So we'll go humans. What kind of person do we want to go for? Oh, we got man, woman, black, brown, white. Let's do brown woman. Boom. Drag and drop. Okay, let's put her at 0, 0, 0. Oops. She's at 0, 0, and 0. So she's right there. And then we got to do 3 animals and 1 food object into the hierarchy. Okay, so now we want food. So let's do animals first. 3 animals. So we got dogs, we got farm, we got forest. Farm animals, forest animals. We need 3. Why do they have so many dogs? You know what? I really like German Shepherds. So we'll have a German Shepherd. They don't have any Rotties. Rotties are the other ones that I really like. St. Bernards. Because of the movie. And let's do Border Collie. Boom. 3 dogs and 1 food. Where's the food? There's the food. Okay, so we got banana, bone, cookie, energy can, cooked fish, organic apple, carrot, pear, pizza, sandwich, steak, wine. You know what? Dogs like steak. Boom. So rename the character player, then reposition the animals and food so you can see them. So I can see all these guys. Let's name this one. Let's rename player. Yeah, and did we have to rename? Player has to be here too. Okay, good. Okay, and then it says rename the character player, then reposition the animals and food so you can see them. So I could see all three in the game mode as well. Okay, we'll figure out what to do. Adjust the XYZ scale of the food so you can easily see it from above. Boop, 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 boop. See it from above. So I think you want to see everything here from above. Boom. Mark step as complete. Yeah, because we got that going. I guess do we want the dogs to be touching the ground? I guess we'll make all of them go on the ground. Boom. Go there. And there. So they're all on the ground. And the food will have flying. Flying steak. Okay, get the user's horizontal input. If we want to move the player left and right, we need the variable tracking and user input. So in your assets folder, create a script folder and a player controller script inside. Attach the script to the player and open it on the top. Player control.cs, declare a new public float horizontal input. Okay. So for this one, I think we'll, okay, so close food. Where do we have for scripts? We don't have scripts in the course library. So we want to open up a new, so create, is there a new folder, and we want to call this scripts. Okay, and then in here, we want to create C# script, and this one is going to be player controller. Boom. And so now what we want to do for this one is we want to put it on the player controller, on the player, and we want to be able to move it in the horizontal stuff. Okay. Okay. Boom. Okay, so we got the user player controller. Good. That's what we wanted. And so we want to have in here public. No, not capitalized. Public float. Was it public float? Yeah, public float horizontal input. Horizontal input. And that's it for that one. And then we wanted the void update. This one, what? Oh yeah, horizontal input. Horizontal input equals input dot get access. That one right there. Input dot get, and then we want to put in the quotations horizontal. These ones. Or a horizontal. And then we go boom. Okay, so we saved this. I think that was it for the player controller. We want to put this one onto the player. So now they got a horizontal input. I think it was 1. Oh, wait. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the thing. It says that's all we need to do. Then test to make sure it works in the expector. So it does work. It's not moving her yet because we didn't do her to move. But we have it here, so when I do the left and right, it works. So we'll do mark as complete. And then move the player left to right. Okay, declare the new public float speed. So now we got to go back into, oops, cancel. Player controller. Let's, don't need that. Open player controller. And then we need the float speed. Public float speed. We're going to equal it to 10 F. Don't forget this. Now let's see if I remember this without looking at it. So it was transform dot translate and we want, was it space? I think it's space. Vector 3 or was it all in one? No, I think it was space. Vector 3 right. Did I do this wrong? How is it? Okay. Vector 3 dot right. Okay. Dot right times time dot delta time. I want a space here. If you guys notice, I got the new colors. I actually like that, and I got that editor suggester really helps. And we want dot horizontal input, and then we finish it with this. Okay, let me look. Ah, time speed. Okay, because we need the speed is where it's going to go. Okay, I think I got it. Now if we go play, There we go. Left and right. Boom, I did it. Don't even need the guy's videos anymore. I'm so proud of myself. So there is a little bit of work that I gotta look at. I am cheating a little bit with looking at the stuff. Okay, keep the player in bounds. We have to prevent player from going off the side of the screen with an if then statement. Okay, so we haven't done if statements yet, so I'm actually going to go and watch this video.
Great, so we've added a way to be able to control the player and move them left or right. But we have another problem now where the player can actually go off of the screen that we can see. And in fact, if you see the scene view, our player can actually just go all the way off the screen. And then eventually they might actually just fall off the map, which is no good. So what we're going to do is we're going to set a boundary so that the player cannot leave this area and they'll stay within what we can see in the game. In order to do that, we're actually going to start using some logic in programming so that we can control when we want something to happen and when we don't. If we go over to our IDE, now in our IDE, what we're actually going to do is we're going to add something called an if statement to our update method. So if we go to our method and we create a new line by pressing enter, now we can type in if, and then we'll put next to it some parentheses, and then if we press enter and add a curly bracket, which is just under your minus key on your keyboard, and we'll press shift to make that curly bracket. Why? Because if we just press the button where the curly bracket is, we'll make square brackets, and that's not something that we can use, nor do we want right now. So this is an if statement. What will happen is when this line of code happens in our update function, if the thing inside of these parentheses is true, if it's something that is happening, then it'll do whatever is inside of this code block. So what we're going to do is we know that the player is moving left or right on their X position. Now we want to bound that within a certain range so that way they don't go off the screen. So what we'll actually do is in our if statement, where we're checking what's going to happen, we're going to write transform, and then we're going to get the player's position, but we're going to get the X value specifically. And we want to make sure that it's less than -10. Now there's a problem here because, as we know from before, less than is not something that you can tell a computer. If you remember, there's a lot of different symbols that you can use, like the plus sign or the minus sign. What we're going to do is we're going to use a left caret symbol. And so this means less than. So if the current object's position on the X is less than -10, now we can do something. So now that we know that whenever the player's position gets to less than -10, what we're going to do is we're going to get their position, and we're going to set it to a position that we want them to go to. So we're going to use a new vector 3. That way we can create a position that they go to. Because we don't want the player to go less than -10, we want to keep them at -10 whenever they try. So we'll put -10 for the X value. But their Y and their Z positions never change. So if we type transform dot position dot Y, that'll get their Y position. And then transform dot position dot Z. And then if we close off that statement, now, if we save, and then we go into Unity, and now when we press play, if we try to go to the left in the negative direction, when we hit 10, you can see that the player runs into this invisible wall and they can't move any further. So going into our IDE, what you're going to do is you're going to write your own if statement in the update function to get the player's position, and if it ever goes less than -10, so say -11, just set their position to be a new vector 3 for their position to be at -10, but we don't want to change their y or their z. Now it's your turn.
Okay, so let's look at her. Where is it? Player. So, oops. Back to the game. So we go here. It stops at -10. Maybe +10 as well. Okay, so we're going to do the next strip. So we'll do the same thing for the next side. Okay, so trying to figure this out. So if transform position x is less than 10. So now we get out of this one and we'll make another if statement. So we go if transform dot position dot x is, we want to do greater than 10, then we're going to do this. So we do transform. I'm just going to copy that, copy and paste, copy and paste, because why not? That's what programming is all about, isn't it? It's just copy and paste. And then we'll put that there, make that a 10. And there we go. Let's save. And paste or play. Okay. And yeah, it stops. So we stop between 10, -10, and 10. Boom. We're programmers. Copy and paste. Got it. Okay, so I'm going to mark this one as complete. And so I'm pretty sure the next video, I'm going to scroll down and it says clean up your code and variables. Okay. Okay, we're cleaning it up. Let's watch this. I should have probably cleaned it up before I did the other one. Oh, whatever.
Great. So now we're able to make sure that the player never leaves the left side of the screen. However, the player can still leave the right side of the screen, and that's definitely not what we want to happen at all. So we're going to go back into our IDE. Now, in our player controller script, you can see that we have this if statement, and we're going to cheat a little bit. So we're actually just going to highlight all of this code, and we're going to copy it.
Paste.
And then
I didn't highlight all of it. I only did the little part. I could have done the whole thing.
And we're going to paste it. Now, really what we're doing is now we just want to make sure that it never goes greater than 10. So, in the effort of laziness, we're actually going to just set this to be greater than 10. And then we're going to change the -10 to 10. So now, if we save this, in Unity, when we press play, if we go left, we stay in bounds. If we go right, we also stay in bounds.
Sweet.
Now, that was a nice, easy way to be able to make sure our player stays in bounds. Now, we do have one problem where we're using the numbers -10 and 10 multiple times. And so what we're going to do is we're actually just going to make a variable for this. So that way we don't have to keep rewriting these numbers anytime that we want to.
Nice.
So we're actually going to create a public float. We're going to call this one left bounds so that it's the left boundary of the screen. And we're actually just going to set this to -10 right now. And we're going to do the same thing for the right bounds. So public float right boundary. We're just going to leave these public for now, just in case we need to change the numbers later. It was a little small, the area that the player could move, so maybe we'll fix that later. So we'll actually go and, whoops, made a mistake. Remove that minus sign, because we want the right bounds to be the same as this number. So we're going to go to -10, and we'll just delete that, and we'll just call this left boundary. And then this -10, the same thing. And then for 10, it'll be the right boundary. And with that, we've just moved the values around, but the interaction will still be the same. As the player goes to the left, it'll be stuck to -10. As the player goes to the right, it'll still be 10. However, there is one way that we can do this even better than what we have right now. So you can see that we actually have 10 and -10, and we can actually clean this up to be even better than what we have right now.
Oh,
So, in fact, if I remove left and right boundary, and I can create a float variable that we'll just call x range to be the range that the player can move within the x value. And we're actually just going to set this to be 10. Now, the computer's mad at us because these variables don't exist anymore, so we're actually going to change left boundary, and we're going to make this a negative x range, which will immediately turn that 10 into a -10. And then with our left boundary down here, do the same thing, negative x range. In our right boundary, we'll set this to x range. And the same thing down in our method. And now, with this magical math that we've done, we can actually go into Unity, and when we press play, as the player moves back and forth to the left, they're stuck in -10. As they move to the right, they're stuck in 10. And now we can just change this value to say if we want this to be, let's just make this 15 for now. So instead of changing two variables in our inspector, we only have to change one, our x range. So it's your turn. Now what you're going to do is create your own x range variable, and you can set it to be whatever number that you want. And then you're going to change all the values in here so that they're negative x range, an x range, and then you're going.
That was actually pretty informative for me, at least. It's just interesting how. Yeah, I guess you just do public float, and it could be so you just put whatever number you want, and you could call it whatever you want, which is interesting. Yeah, and so then it's a lot easier. And then if you make it public, it affects both x and y, or both x, negative and positive. Cool. Okay, so we have lesson recap. We don't need it. Mark is complete. Yay! We got 5 for Unity Essentials and for programming. Level 1. Nice. We'll continue. So next lesson that we're doing is 2.2, food fight. Okay, so the first thing we must do is give the projectile some forward movement so it can zip across the scene when it's launched by the player. So create a new move forward script attached to the food object. Then open it, declare a new public float speed variable, and update, add, transform, translate, vector 3 speed, then save. In the expector, set the projectile speed variable, then test. Okay, so we're just going to be making this food object. Okay, so the food object right here. Oh, I gotta click it on this here. Did I just move her? I did. We want 0, boom, and 0. With the food object, let's do x-axis is 0. 0. Okay, so now it's going to be in front. We'll bring this down, let's say 140. I don't know why it's doing that. Bring it down to 1. Doesn't need to be right on the ground, and then this one we'll do 5 for this one. Or do we want to do 0? Maybe we'll do 0. Maybe we'll do 1. Right there, right in front of her. Okay, so now we need to make a new script. Create. And this is going to be for the pizza. Okay, so food flight. What are they calling this one? Let's just call it. Let's call it food. Food fight. Food fight. I'm gonna toss it. So we'll go open up the script. And so basically what this wants us to do is we want to just make it move forward. Oops, wrong one. Food fight. Okay, food fight. We just want to make it go forward. We want to make a thing for speed. We'll make it public for now. Oops, sorry. Public float. Speed equals. They have 40 here. So we'll just do 40 for now. Making it go really fast. So we want it to go forward. So we do transform dot translate. Forgot it. Transform translate. We want vector 3 forward. Oh no, dot forward. Times delta time, or time dot delta time times speed. Yeah, so I go looking at it. Yeah, that's all it wants us to do. So we'll save and we'll look at it, and it should just zoom like crazy. Did it zoom? Oh no, because we didn't put it on the food. Now we got it. Okay. Food fly. Boom, it's gone. Food fight. Do we want to change the script name? Because it said food flight. Let's change it. So to change it, we gotta go rename. So we go food flight. See, you guys, my dyslexia came in. So it's opening. This is the player. We don't want this one. Food flight. But we want this one. We want to change it right here to food flight. Otherwise, we're going to have problems in the future. Yeah, save. So now this is what it's registered as. So if we ever need something in the future for that, it's saving. Boom. Okay, mark is complete. Then we'll do the next one. Make the projectile into prefab. Create new prefab folder, drag your food into it, and choose original prefab. In controller, declare the new public game object projectile variable. Select a player in the hierarchy, then drag the object from your prefab folders. Okay, so this is something new. I'm going to watch the video.
Alright, so we make it to our pizza can fly all the way off into the distance. There it goes. Can we chase it down?
Oh, I have steak, not
Just
pizza.
keeps going on and on forever and ever, all the way till it reaches the ends of the earth. So we're going to stop play mode. Now, if we focus back on our main characters here, I'll just do a top-down view for now. Now, our little piece of pizza has the behavior that we want it to have, and now we need to create something called a prefab so that we can keep reusing it anytime, anywhere, and it will always be the exact same, and it'll have everything that it should be doing. In order to do that, we're actually going to create another folder in our assets. Right-click on Assets, create a folder, and we're going to name this Prefabs. Now, what we're going to do is, in our Prefabs folder, we're actually going to drag now our food from our hierarchy and drop it into the Prefabs folder. So now what it's asking is if we would like to create an original or a new variant of this prefab. Now, a prefab is a prefabricated version of the object that you're using. So, for example, because we want to reuse this piece of pizza, we make a prefab so that we can keep reusing the pizza over and over again, and it will always have the move forward script applied to it. Because we changed the size of this pizza, it'll always be this size whenever we bring it from our projects into our project hierarchy. Now, specifically with our original prefab, we're making a brand new prefab versus a prefab variant where, say, we had a bunch of different kinds of pizzas, but they all, are generally a pizza. Then we would start with a pizza, and then maybe one of the variants has pepperonis on it, one of the variants has vegetables on it, so on and so forth. So variants are really useful if you have a basic prefab that you're going to use, but we're just going to make our own prefab right now. So now that you have an original prefab, you can actually see it looks very similar to some of the other assets that we have. So if we take a look at the humans, you can see they all have this blue cube. So that blue cube actually denotes that these are also prefabs too. For our sake, since we made a new prefab, we added it to our prefabs folder. So, in fact, we have this piece of pizza in the scene. And if we press play, you can see that our piece of pizza flies off into the distance, just like it did before. And in fact, we can actually drag our prefabs into our scene. And they'll always have the same characteristics too. So they have that move forward script that actually makes them fly off into the distance. There they go, never to be seen again. So the way that we'll actually make these pieces of pizza spawn is actually from the player itself. So using our player controller, we can actually throw some of these pizzas by ourselves. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to make sure that the player always has a reference to that piece of pizza. So we're actually going to go into our player controller class, and we'll create a new variable. So this will be a public, so that way we can see it and our class can see it. In this case, it'll be a game object, since instead of a value that we're storing, like a float or an integer, we'll actually be storing objects themselves. And then we'll just name this projectile prefab, so that way we know that it's a prefab that we're going to be throwing later. Now if we save and we hop back into Unity, now in Unity, when we click on our player, you'll see that under the player controller script, there's now an empty projectile prefab, and there's no game object attached to it. Now, what you want to make sure you do is drag over your food prefab into that variable. So then that way it always creates a new food prefab from your prefabs. If you were to take the food that's in your project hierarchy, it would actually constantly be trying to create that piece of food that's already in your scene. And so you can actually break stuff later as you try to create more pieces of pizza. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your assets, you're going to create a prefabs folder, drag your piece of pizza down into the prefabs folder so you can create an original.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you got to make sure that these ones, because if you look here, you'll see the steak goes, and as you draw these ones, computer slow, into the scene, they also fly away. So this one will create again, because if you go like this, we try to move this, it doesn't work. But if we do this one, because you're creating it as the game goes. Oops. Yeah. Interesting. So food steak projectile prefab. So then we're probably going to make an if statement on the next one. Like if this one, or no. Oh, test for spacebar press. Now that you have projectile prefab assigned to the player's control, the player needs a way to launch it with the spacebar. Okay. This one is new, so I'm gonna let him teach me this one.
So what we're going to do is we need to figure out a way where whenever the player presses a button, very similar to how they press the left or right arrow keys, they move back and forth. Whenever they press a button, they will spawn their own pizza because we can't just be magically dragging on pizzas if our player's playing the game. It doesn't really work like that. And if 10 people are playing the game, there's only one of you. Just never going to happen. If we go into our code, now in our IDE, we're actually going to create more logic. So we're going to create another if statement. So if you remember, we used our input manager to actually know when somebody's pressed the left or right key using our get axis. Now, another way that we can actually get input is if we go to our condition and we type in input for our input manager, so that way it knows whenever the player is using a controller or their keyboard, and we press dot. Now there's all of these functions that we can use, like get button up, get button down, useful if you have a controller, the get axis that we used before to see whenever the axis changes, and specifically there are these series of functions called get key down, get key up. And so these are all related to your keyboard keys. So if you get key, it gets whenever the key is pressed. Whenever you use get key down, it's whenever the key is pressed down specifically, and key up is whenever you actually let go of that key, it will do that thing. So in our case, we'll do get key down, so that way it's really instant. So whenever the player presses that key once, it'll fire off one of our projectiles. And what we're going to do is we have some different parameters that we can actually put into this method. So we have key code key, not really sure what that means yet, or we have a string name. Now, if the string that I want to use is space, or if it's space bar, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't really memorized that. So, a really easy way that we can do this is something that Unity and C# already do, which is super convenient. So we're actually going to get our key code. Now, a key code basically is mapped to any key on your keyboard. You can actually see in the description, it says these directly map to a physical key on the keyboard. Super helpful. So what we'll actually do is we'll type in key code, and then we need a dot so that we can find all of the different keys that are underneath key code. And you can see there's a lot of keys that we can press. There's the backspace, there's backslash, there's the letter D, there's an equal sign. So in my case, I actually just want the space bar. So you can see all the way down at S, there's actually the space key, which is really convenient. So now if we close off this parentheses, that way this is all confined within this input method. And then we're just going to add a comment for now in our if statement using the 2 forward slashes. As a to-do for later, we'll launch a projectile from the player. And then we'll save that. So what you're going to do is in your player controller script, you're going to add an if.
Okay, so it's just an if. We still got more to do. That's why I didn't understand what it was saying. Okay, launch projectile on speed bar. Okay, so inside the if statement, use the instantive method to spawn a projectile at the player's location with prefab's rotation. Instantiate. What? Let's see what he says. I can't read that word.
So we've made it so that we can get the player input whenever they press the space bar. So we'll remove this comment and we'll actually code how we can launch a projectile from the player. So now, whenever the space key is pressed down, something will happen. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use a new method. So this one's called instantiate.
Instantiate.
And so what instantiate does is it's another way of saying that we're going to create an object. But specifically, in our case, instantiate is for creating copies of objects that already exist. So, for example, our projectile prefab that we have at the top, we've already created that. So we're not trying to create brand new projectile prefabs. We're actually just trying to create copies of it. And instantiate is what allows you to create a copy of that object. So if we open the parentheses, you see that it's looking for an object to copy. So we're actually going to do the projectile prefab and autocomplete. And we actually need more options. So if we scroll through the different ways that we can do this, so you see here in particular, this line is really useful. So these parameters are asking for a position that the object is going to start at and the rotation that it should be when you create it. So what we're actually going to do is, since we want this to actually spawn on the player's position, we'll just use their transform position to do that. And then, since we already have a rotation set up on the prefab, we don't need to change it at all because it's only going in one direction. So we'll type in projectile, and then we'll get our projectile prefab. We'll get the transform because that's where our rotation is stored. And then we'll get the rotation. And then we close that statement. And now, when we save, if we go back into Unity, and now when we press the play button, you can see the piece of pizza flies off to the distance as it did before. And if I click on the game screen, you can see I can move my player back and forth. And as I press spacebar, Now I'm creating new pizzas, and those pizzas are flying off into the distance. So, what you're going to do is you're going...
Okay, I gotta look at that again. So he said this one means create. So we're going to create the pizza or the steak. I got steak. Transform position. Okay, so it's already okay. So we're oh, transform position because we got the transform position already. For the X, yeah, for the X range. Yeah, transform position. So wherever the player controller is. Wait. But then free pad transform rotate. I don't get that. Okay, let's see what he says again. I gotta look back at that. I don't understand
So,
this.
these parameters are asking for a position that the object is going to start at and the rotation that it should be when you create it. So what we're actually going to do is, since we want this to actually spawn on the player's position, we'll just use their transform position to do that. And then, since we already have a rotation set up on the prefab, we don't need to change it at all because it's only going in one direction. So we'll type in projectile, and then we'll get our projectile prefab. We'll get the transform, because that's where our rotation is stored. And then we'll get the rotation. And then we close that statement. And now, when we save, if we go back into Unity...
Interesting. So this is the so you got the position of where it's going to be and the rotation of where it's going to be. But the rotation doesn't change. So you're just using the prefab.transform rotation. Okay. I kind of get it. Okay, make animals into prefabs. Okay, rotate all the animals on the y-axis to 90 degrees to face down. Select all three animals in the hierarchy and add component. Move forward. Edit their values, speed, and test to see how it works. Drag all three animals into prefab folder, choosing original prefab. Test by dragging prefabs onto the scene during gameplay. Okay, so what we need to do rotate all the rotate all the animals 90 degrees. So let's put our animals. I have to move them around. Let's have okay, so position. Let's have it -9. Just have this one at 7. Rotation 180. Boom. This one position 0. This one at 7. And this one at 180. This doggy will have position. So we can't go past the 10. So we'll have it at 9. This one will be at 7 as well. So they're just all at the same place. And then this one's going to be 180. Boom. Okay, now select all animals in the hierarchy and add component. Move forward. Add component. Move. Okay, so we're going to have to add a new script. We're going to call it move forward. Move forward. Enter. Okay, so we got one that's moved forward. So we'll just start the this thing again. So food flight. We'll copy this one, copy and paste to move forward. And we will just we'll change the speed to like, let's go 10. Okay, now let's save this. Okay, dog 1, move forward. Dog 2, move forward. Dog 3, he's got it. So if we press play, they're moving forward. Okay, you know what? Maybe we'll put them back a little bit. Oops. How do we undo? I forgot how to undo. Okay, Control Z. Control Z was undo. Okay, wait. Okay, let's just keep on undoing. Okay, so this one. 15. Good enough. 15 and 15. Okay, dogs are moving forward. So now we need to edit their speed values and test to see how this looks like. Drag all 3 animals into the prefab folder, choosing original prefab. So we'll go prefabs and go in the original prefab. Original prefab. Test the prefabs by bringing them into the gameplay. Okay, that one works. That one works. That one works. And that one works. Okay. Mark step as complete. Okay, destroy projectiles off screen. Okay, so yeah, so destroy, create out of bounds script and apply it to the projectile. Add a new private float top bound variable and initiate it to 30. Okay. Well, it's been an hour. I think we're going to call it quits for there. Let's save. And we will come back to it tomorrow. Okay. So, because we have these projects, I need to get these projects done before I actually start doing my own project. Because there's still more learning to do. We're going to try all on my days off, except for maybe Sunday. we're going to do as much as we can. So tomorrow I have the day off. It's winter, so there's less work to do for landscaping. And yeah, so tomorrow I'm going to try to do at least 3 or 4 hours in the day. And I'm also going to be doing the 9 o'clock. So I'll be doing 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time throughout the whole thing. And then I'll start editing some of this stuff to be in like actual folders for if you guys want to follow along. And you can learn this stuff. And if you just like this beautiful face. Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not gonna be doing Twitch for a little bit. I'm going to focus more on these projects. This is good learning stuff. Yeah. Yeah, no, this is good. I just need to. It's been an hour, so we'll probably do hour increments tomorrow. Do an hour here, take a break, do an hour there, and another hour. I got some appointments I got to do and be at, so I can't do like just a full day. It'll be a full 8 hour day. But when I can do a full 8 hour day, I'll do that. Which Saturday, my wife doesn't make plans. Okay, too much talking. I will see you guys tomorrow. You guys have a great day, and just remember that together we're going to revolutionize this industry. It's just one step at a time, and I'm just learning. Hopefully, in the 90 days, we're going to have to reevaluate the time schedule because of this. But 90 days, end of April, I want to have my first game ready for putting on, like, I think Google Play. My goal is to have it as an actual mobile game. So you could click on the mobile, maybe have it as a computer game. Don't hate me for mobile games, okay? I have to start somewhere. Don't worry, we'll get to where we need. Okay, so with that, you guys have a great day yourself, or great night, or evening.